Hello, my fellow readers. It's time for my first quarterly review of the year. So this is all of the books that I've read from January to March of 2024. And my grand total of books read so far this year is 191, which is a lot of books. I do think a big part of that was because I decided in this first part of the year to read all of Assassination Classroom, which was, at least 20? Was it 21 volumes? Something like that. Of manga, and yeah, that was a lot. I did get through a lot of books, especially in January. January had the most number of books that I've read so far this year. I definitely cut back to more normal levels for February and March, but in this video I will be going over everything that I read. I'll show that off with my stats in my reading log and then my Goodreads as well, and I will review some of my favorite books that I've read so far this year. So I'm just going to let my other self take over, and I'll see you at the end. All right, here's a look at the 191 books that I've read this quarter. I do not think my future quarters of the year will be this packed with books. I had a lot of manga that I wanted to catch up with during this first quarter, so that was the majority of it. I think most of the regular stuff was pretty normal about what I normally do. But let's just take a better look. Again, this is the reading log that I keep. It is based on Book Riots, which you can download for free. They put one out every year, so this is their 2024 one, and then I make a couple modifications just so that it looks more like my theme. So we started the year here with one of my review copies, Most Ardently, which was a retelling of Pride and Prejudice. And then a bunch of manga and other graphic novels, because Heartstopper Volume 5 was there, and that was very exciting to start the year with new Heartstopper. And then we'll just continue on. I feel like this year I've just gone through a lot of review copies of books, which is good. I don't know. I feel like I've picked up since last year, and I make sure I get the books read, I get them reviewed, and it's very exciting for me. And I feel like this year has already been big for that. And of course, January had the huge read of Assassination Classroom, so that bumped up my totals a ton. So in January, I got through 88 books. That was a lot of books for January alone, but I think Assassination Classroom was a big part of that. I also got through more of Demon Slayer, and now I only have a couple volumes left to finish, but I've kind of been reading that along with watching the anime, so I'm kind of waiting until the next season is out. So currently I'm caught up with where the anime left off. It is weird for me, just seeing the number of manga series that I finished. I don't know. It's wild. I didn't mark the beginning of March here, but we ended February up at 153 books from I think it was 88 for January. And then here is March. And then it ended here. Well, here. And Looking for Love in All the Haunted Places. So both of these books are review copies of books. And yeah, I don't know. So far, so good. I'll look at my stats and charts and, I don't know, I guess show a little bit more of the detail. Again, this reading log includes things like the author, the artist/narrator of the book, publisher, pub date, the start date, so the day you start reading it, the day you finish reading it, DNF, which I never get because I always finish a book, even if I'm not liking it, just so that at the very bitter end, I know that I did indeed hate everything. It's just not my style to quit a book. I'm fine if people do. I recommend it all the time. I can't get my brain to do it. And then the number of pages, the length of the audiobook, the format of the book, so whether it was audio, digital, or print, fiction or nonfiction, the form of the book, so that includes prose, poetry, novella, comics, essay collection, short story collection, play or picture book. And then we go to the genre, so that's just the basic stuff like science fiction, fantasy, blah, blah, blah. the audience for the book, so adult, teen, middle grade. Did the book feature a POC protagonist, LGBTQIA protagonist, trans representation, creator, gender? Again, you can leave these blank if this is unknown. I think I added one that was like unknown because sometimes I do not know with the Japanese creators. Like sometimes you can know, but a lot of times if it's more the genre like BL or GL, you don't really know. They don't really advertise themselves, I think, and sometimes they don't want to advertise. Sometimes you can know. There are some famous authors, but it really depends on the author themselves. So I did add unknown just in case I couldn't find out. And then whether there's a disability rep, if it's a reread, is the book a book of in translation, what was the original language of the book, and then the nation of origin. And then the source for the book. I think some of these, not this one, not the book source, but the audiobook source. This is new this year. And they've added like where you get it from. So a lot of mine will be Libby, but occasionally Audible. And then I think I added Spotify to the list because now you can get an audiobook with Spotify. But yeah, I like that they added that part in. And then the reason for reading. And then this is based on the other parts of the chart with how many days you've spent reading it and how many pages per day based on that. And then that of course is for if you've read it versus the time per day if you listened on audiobook. And then a lot of mine with the time per day, this of course is an estimate because that doesn't really come into effect because maybe you listen to the majority one day and then only a little bit on the next day. But also for me, you pretty much would have to cut these in half for the listening speed. So I know all that stuff, but other people might not. And then your rating for the book. And then if it fulfilled a read harder challenge category, you put that here. I know that I have not done this for a couple of these books because Why Reread is one of those categories and I haven't filled it in yet. But that's okay. I can just take a quick peek over here. I had completed 17, so I think this is really like 18 or 19 at this time. Maybe more? Oh, I might have missed a few. I definitely have to go through and see. And then I would still have 7, but again, I know this is less. I've actually finished some that I just forgot to mark it on there. And I got to go back and do that. And then, of course, you get the basic stats. I don't look at this one too much. I like the charts because I'm much more visual in this way. And so the charts show whether you finished or DNF'd a book, the fiction versus nonfiction. Again, most of my reading will be fiction. I'm more of a fiction reader. And then the format of the book. So this breaks that down. I'm doing pretty well between an audio and print. Actually, if you take print and digital, I'm doing a little bit better with physical, like the words, than audio. I think this is mostly because I have increased my rating of advanced reader copies through my Kindle, and that's where most of the digital come in. I do read a couple of light novels that are only available in the digital format, and then there's a couple of books here and there I'll get that are digital. And then print, I know this is usually skewed slightly because of the manga, so, but I'd view these about equal. And then the form of the book, mostly comics. Actually, the majority is prose. But then, yeah, there's a huge ton of comics, a couple of short stories, a couple of novellas. The genre, again, this is never a surprise for me looking at the genre. I'm surprised right now that there's so many skewed. Romance is slightly above fantasy right now. But again, this not a big surprise. I read a lot of fantasy. I do read quite a bit of romance because I like that break in it. I'm surprised so much sci-fi. I wonder if this is from Assassination Classroom because that was a sci-fi manga series. And then general fiction, memoir and biography, general nonfiction, horror, which is a nice slice of the pie there, and then mystery is a good slice of the pie. I don't remember what this might be. The little tiny sliver. They don't have it marked. And then I feel like I missed a chart, so I'm going to go back. Yes, the audience for the book. I'm actually surprised by this, but then again, I think that the YA is skewed high based on the manga. The majority of the books that I read are adult fiction nowadays. I used to read a lot more YA, but I haven't been as, I guess, interested in the titles. Like, I haven't been wowed by a lot of the YA titles that are out currently. I do think YA books are worth a read. I just haven't been as swayed to reading them recently. And then the pub date, this is books published in 2024. So again, a lot of these are going to be my advanced reader copy, but then a few will probably be just releases that I haven't read advanced reader copies of, but I'm reading this year. And then this is all the backlist titles. And then you can check out books by page count. Again, I'm pretty sure most of these are the light novels and manga. And then book source. So there's my little sliver of Spotify. Books that have been on my TBR for a while, and I'm slowly trying to get my TBR read. And then books that I have just purchased this year. My library books. Review copies. Books I borrowed, so that's usually borrow from other source. Audible. And then Libby. So technically a library would be this chunk and this chunk, but that's okay. Go back, the audiobook source. So again, that breaks down the audiobooks. The majority I borrow from Libby, from my different libraries. And then there's Audible, Spotify, and then a little bit from Hoopla. Again, Hoopla would also be technically library books. Then audiobooks by length. So the majority of audiobooks that I do are between 5 and 15 hours, with a couple being 15 to 20 hours and a few that are greater than 20 hours and a few that are less than 5. Books finished per month. Again, January was my biggest month so far this year. I would wager that most of my months are going to be more around March for the size, but who knows? I could be surprised, but I'm thinking this is more normal, average reading. My star ratings, I got a couple of 3s. I guess I didn't have any books that I really didn't like yet this year. A couple that I was just okay with, which is the 3s. A couple that I was slightly more okay with, which is the 3.5. A lot that are 4, which I thought were just good books. And I do read a lot of good books. And then a couple more that I considered really good books. And then a couple that are great books. Then we have the breakdown of the author gender. And this is only okay because you should be one making sure to read a variety. But also, I think a lot of times this was set up so that you'd have more female author representation, but I always read more female authors, so I feel almost like I need to skew more male authors. But what do I know? And then the nation of origin. So again, because of manga, but also a lot of books. I read a lot of Japanese translated books. I have a lot from Japan, then some from Korea, a lot from the US, and then Canada, UK, Australia, Ireland. A lot of times I end up with a couple other countries too, so we'll see how that breaks down by the end of the year. Then whether the author or artist had queer representation. You should always try to have at least some diversity in your reading. So again, the POC protagonist versus white protagonist, and POC authors versus white authors, and queer protagonists versus non-queer protagonists, books in translation versus not in translation, disability rep. Let me scroll it over because you probably can't see it. Disability rep versus no disability. The purchase source, which I never fill out, so that's why that's not there. And then trans protagonists versus cis protagonists. I can't believe that's only one. I feel like maybe there was more and I mismarking it, but I could be wrong. That's a lot of books to go through. And then trans authors versus cis authors. And again, the purchase and the purchase books versus unread. I don't fill that part out, so I don't have a chart for that, but I do like just checking these every once in a while, making sure that I'm reading diversely. This is another part of the reading log that I've never filled out, but it's kind of interesting if you want to monitor your spending. You can actually do this here where you're including the books and then how much it cost and like why you bought it and did you read the book and when you purchased it. So this can really check your spending. I never do that. I try to just only buy the books that I really loved or really think I'm going to love, or manga that I cannot borrow. So let's take a look at Goodreads, where I can view the covers, and it'll probably inspire me to talk about some of the books that I've really liked so far. So this is the start of the year. A lot of these are my January 1st books that I finished reading. It was an okay start. I was actually a little worried that, I don't know, that I wouldn't love everything. I didn't super love Most Ardently. I liked it a lot. But I'm always, I don't know, retellings are hard for me because I love the original stories so much that sometimes I really don't love retellings. This happens a lot with retellings of Romeo and Juliet, where I'm just not a fan because that story gets told over and over again, and Hamlet as well. And I kind of feel like take just a couple of the themes and go with that. Don't retell the story. I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm not like other people. I don't love retellings. I did review After the Forest. I was going to review To Kill a Shadow, and then I realized, looking back, that I couldn't really remember that much about the book. It wasn't memorable enough to me to warrant a review of it. It was okay. It wasn't bad. It just didn't really stick with me. And this is the first book. So I don't know what's going to happen when the next book is out. I might do a recap of it before I read the second one, or I'll just never read the second one. I'm not really sure, but we'll see. And then some of these you might notice from the ones that I read for my TBR. I do want to review this. I hope to do this series soon. The business, is it my business proposal or just a business proposal? Loving this so much. I can't wait to read more of it. I have to buy the other ones. But yeah, I had a good time with this. I hope to review it because I like it. I have a good time with that one. I like it a lot. Let's see, what else have we got here? Not too much new that I haven't talked about. I don't think I've gotten to talk about this while you met, have I? Seventh Time Loop? I don't know. But if not, I'll probably be talking about that. And I don't know. I feel like a lot of the books that I got through in January weren't I wasn't super impressed by. They were good, but not I wasn't totally wowed. I did like Sally Hepworth's new book, Darling Girls. I think this will be out now or very soon to now. But this one is about these foster girls that are taken into this house. And we follow kind of the story of when they're young, but also the main setting is they're adults. And it's kind of what they have gone through, how they're dealing with life now. But then we also see the backstory of kind of why maybe they are the way they are, or what they're dealing with. And on top of that, there's a mystery that happens when they go to, they're not selling it, but they, as in people, are selling the house that they were growing up in. They're going to sell it, and a body is discovered on the property. And so they're called back to their old hometown by the police, and they have to answer questions about what was going on, and that the past is uncovered as well as us following them in the present. And it was good. I did like that one, so I'd recommend this. Like I said, this should be out now. That was one of my advanced reader copies, but I was glad I read it. It was good. Ruthless Vows, finished the duology by Rebecca Ross. It's so funny, this has been everywhere, and I like this duology a lot, but I've actually liked some of Rebecca Ross's works more than this duology, so it's complicated. I have complicated feelings about this one, but I do like it a lot. Oshinoko. One of these days I'll talk about Oshinoko because I really, really like it. If you do happen to see anything on here that I've read and not talked about, feel free to recommend me review it. I may have to do like a review of it before I review it. Like I'll have to skim it, but in general, I'm more than willing to do that. Because I really like talking about the things that I've read and sharing that in case you're interested and you want to know more about it. I'm more than willing to do that. The new Abby Jimenez book, which is another companion book to the previous two books. So Part of Your World and Yours Truly. This is another companion book to these. And I really liked it. I did not love it as much as Yours Truly, but I did really like it. And you do see some of the characters from the other books appear in this one, so it was good. I liked it. I like Abby Jimenez. I think she writes really good books. And let's see, I talked about that one. Some of these manga I will probably be talking about. Ones that I'll be getting more volumes of and talking about include No Longer Heroine, which I really, really like that book, so I'm definitely going to get more and talk about it. Timon's, was it? Yeah, Timon's B-side. I don't know. I will probably be reading, I'll definitely be reading more of it, but I may review that one. Not really sure. I've talked about Feybound. You know what I never got to mention about Feybound? Which was really distracting to me because I read the book as well as listened to the audio. And half the time for urine, it sounded like urine. And that was hard with the audiobook. I would say for Feybound, if you can read the written word well, maybe just stick to that, which is a shame because I like Bonnie Turpin, who narrated it, but I didn't really care for the narration here, and I think that was also part of why I didn't like Lettle. But yeah, I found the audio for this not as engaging, so I don't know that I can recommend the audio, but it was a good book. I did like the book. This is my reread of Lessons in Chemistry for book club, so I'm not going to talk about that. And let's see, anything else? Maybe one day I'll talk about Bibliophile Princess. I'm not really sure. I've been reading the light novel on my Kindle when I have time, and I do like it. But I don't know. The Kamogawa Food Detectives. I love the covers. I don't love the series as much as like Before the Coffee Gets Cold, the Tales from the Cafe series. But I liked them. They were cute enough. It is sort of like Tales from the Cafe, but imagine like there being a food that unlocks like memory and everything, and it's not as full of magical realism. But I love the covers. I love the cute covers. And the colors for this one is gorgeous. Let's see. What else have we got here? I finally got to The Wishing Game, and I loved this book. This was probably one of the ones that was 5 stars. I did not think I would love this book, and I loved this book. But it's very hard to explain. There's an author of like a book series, and he invites a certain group of, well, now they're adults, but like they were probably at one point children that he ran into in his life because he writes a popular middle grade series, and he invites them to come to his home, and they're going to play a game, and whoever wins the game wins the manuscript for like his final book, except if you do not win the game by X date, the manuscript goes to like the regular publishing house and everything. And our main character, she, long ago when she was young, she wrote a letter to the author, and they had this communication, and she actually ran away from her abusive home life and escaped to the island, and she spent like a little while there, I don't remember how long, and was then forced to leave, of course. And I don't know, like things didn't look so good for the author based on that. But she always wanted to stay because she felt like part of that life and part of his family. Like she wanted to be his assistant and wanted to live there, and it was a safe space for her. So in this, she's invited into the game, and she's very happy to go back there, and she's really hoping that she can win the game and the manuscript so that she can sell it, but with good reasons. She wants to sell it and get the money to have enough money to adopt this child that is in foster care and has had a really rough go of it. Anyway, it's really good and it's really sweet, and I would 100% recommend this book. Okay. Oh, just good. I liked the Heaven and Earth grocery store. This was end of last year kind of book. Again, one of my book club books. Really good. Would recommend this one. I probably won't take time to talk all about this one, but it's historical fiction set in this neighborhood that I'm trying to think of the time period it's set now, and I'm forgetting. But anyway, it is mostly Jewish and Black population, and it's kind of how they can work together, but at the same time, it is not, because there's also a closer story that is about a young deaf boy who oversees this assault on a woman, and he tries to fight it, ends up getting kind of beaten, and is taken to this institution. And of course, because he's like deaf, they believe that he's unintelligent, and it's horrible because he's institutionalized because of that. But also those facilities were terrible, and there's a lot of abusive people there, and there's all these other plots that are happening too, but this is the main one. And then it becomes like, can they break him out of there and get him free? And it's good. I like that one a lot. There's so much more to this story than what I just said, but that's a good sliver of it. And The Library of Borrowed Hearts is the latest from Lucy Gilmore. I liked that book. It was sweet. I liked her previous one a little bit more, but it was still really good. A Feather So Black. I don't know why the cover's not here. It has a beautiful cover that I really liked. This is another like fantasy tale that's kind of fairy tale-esque, and I would recommend this one if you like fantasy fairy tale books. But essentially the main character goes like, how do I describe this? She's a changeling, and she's living with the humans, and she's been raised kind of as their daughter. She is in love with her friend, but the friend is also the fiance of the girl that, like, the princess that she replaced. And at this time in the book, she is going out on a mission to find the princess that was replaced and see if she can break the curse that's on her. Because she has a curse where she turns into a swan for part of the day. And there's the big bad who's supposedly keeping them cursed, but she comes to be closer to that guy as well. And that guy, he's not really a guy, he's the fae. But she gets closer to him, discovers that there's more going on to that story. And it was really good and engaging, and I liked it a lot. I think I did I talk about the Forrest Grimm? I can't remember now, but that was a good one. Son of Blood and Ruin. These were 2 Fairy Loot books. The Fairy Loot books have been, like, good, but not necessarily great. Broad in Japan. This is good. I mean, if you like Chris Broad and the Broad in Japan in general, you'll probably like it, but I thought that was really good. I like the stories. This was an arc. So The Paradise Problem. This is a better Christina Lauren book than some of the ones that have been coming out lately. I haven't been like a huge fan of Christina Lauren's recent books. Like, they've been okay, but not like the past ones. And this one I think is closer to the past ones. It involves the main 2 characters who, during college, decide to get married so that they can live in the subsidized housing together. We find out that wasn't the sole reason for the male in the relationship. he needed to get married so that he could get access to his inheritance from his deceased grandfather. And it turns out that not only did he need to get married, but he needs to stay married in order to keep the inheritance. And so even though she believes after this part of the term, when they're done with college, that they're divorced and moving on with their lives, they haven't been divorced, they've been married, and he now needs her to come with him to his sister's wedding on an island and be his wife. And they need to prove how in love they are so that he can keep his inheritance. And there's more reasons than that, but it is pretty good. And I started off not liking the two characters, but then by the end, I liked them and I did support their story. What the River Knows, I will probably be talking about. This is another Fairy Loot one that I finished recently, as well as A Fragile Enchantment, which has probably been my favorite of the Fairy Loot books. I will be talking about this book eventually as well. And then, let's see, anything else? Obviously, You Can Have My Back. I will be talking about. That was part of my April TBR, which I ended up finishing before April. I was so worried about that book. And then it was like, bam, I finished it in no time because I really liked it. And then I finished up this quarter with 2 advanced reader copies. One being Looking for Love in All the Haunted Places, and then You Should Be So Lucky. You Should Be So Lucky is a companion book to Cat Sebastian's other historical romance from last year or the year before, We Could Be So Good, which I really liked. That was a friends to lovers story. This one is more of a grumpy sunshine, but also having characters that are dealing with grief and loss, and also kind of displacement, but also because it's historical. I just said but also too many times, but because it's historical, they're also dealing with the prejudice of that time period and how they can't really be authentically out in a relationship. So it's good. I think Cat Sebastian writes very good historical fiction. And then Looking for Love in All the Haunted Places, and both of these aren't out until May, so look for them next month. Looking for Love in All the Haunted Places follows the main character who, she has a bunch of different abilities, but one of which, when she wears sunglasses all the time. If she's not wearing her sunglasses and she looks you in the eye, she can immediately get a sense of people and get like their story. It's all explained in there. I cannot explain it. But anyway, she's had a run of bad luck recently. And so when the book begins, she's trying to get a new job. She's applying for this position where she would become the caretaker of Hennessy House, which is a supposedly haunted house. But not only is she the caretaker, they're doing like a video series around the house. So I'm imagining like how YouTube series are like. So they're doing a series around the house where she's the caretaker and she's trying to unlock the secrets of the house and discover if it is haunted, and if so, what's the entity, the whole story behind it. And that will be her job as the caretaker. But not only does she get that new job opportunity, also one of the hosts of the show that is focusing in on her as the caretaker and this house is someone that she's admired for a while as a podcaster, and his name is Maverick. And when they meet, worlds collide, sparks go flying, instant chemistry between the two. But when she takes off her glasses to look at him, she also has this perception about whether or not it will work. And I don't know. That was good. It was an interesting romance. The main character is Ace. So it does have a lot of dealing with what a romantic relationship with someone who is asexual is like. And it was pretty good. You cannot look at these books, even though I enjoyed all of these, because those are April reads. So that is it. I will let you go back to my other self, and I'm going to wrap up the video. So there you have it, my first quarterly review. I'm really excited about how the year has started. I don't want to keep the January pace for this year. I'm thinking more the February-March pace, but so far it's been pretty good. I've read quite a few good books. I'm really excited for a lot of the books that I've read and loved to be released, because a lot of them were arcs, and there's a good chunk that is coming out in April and then in May. And I'm excited for some of the books that are releasing this summer too, which I have not gotten to. Like, they're next on my advanced reader copy TBR, and I'm really excited to get to them. And yeah, that is it for this video. Until next time, bye.